in the world. I live in a very diverse area, and I don't know if I don't know why, but I didn't pay attention or notice a lot of the things going on, even though a bunch of my friends and colleagues and family members have told me for years. So just with what's been happening the last few months, it's blatantly obvious. And I feel that I've just been, I don't know, overwhelmed with emotion about it. So I'm here to learn more, to have a voice, because I think I have a different perspective than maybe somebody who's been aware for a long time. So I'd like to learn. I'd like to share my thoughts and just understand, because I do believe that it starts with conversation. And I do have been making sure that I have conversation with other people who don't look like me and who aren't who haven't probably had the same experience. Just a little about me. I was in the military, the Marine Corps, for 7 years. I got out and I joined corporate America. I did that for about 10 years. And then I became a real estate agent. I had service-connected disability, so I retired from that. And since then, I've just been pretty much a social butterfly. And now, again, with all this happening, I'm just looking forward to learning more and being being more active and finding ways that I can spread whatever information that I get and just whatever insight. So that's me.
Welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you for your service, and thank you for all that you're doing.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me again.
Robin?
Well, good morning, everyone. Yolanda, nice to meet you and have you join this group. Nice to see everyone as well. It's great to be here again and to continue the conversation and learn from new faces and new people. And I'm here to continue the conversation and continue to learn. And I have more questions that get uncovered. And so I have questions for all of you once we get going. I think as things progress and continue, when we started our first conversation, it was kind of learning where we all stand and who we are, and developing sort of that trust really between us, right? Like establishing who we are and our connections, right? How do we establish connections when we don't know who we are and we come to a room together? Mm-hmm. And as things progress and as the world sort of keeps uncovering different things, things keep happening that we're trying to still get a grip on. And I love how you said, Michelle, like, let's get some tangible solutions. What can we really do to make it tangible now? So I'll let everyone get going, but I do have questions for you guys this week. I have questions for you. So Yolanda, just a little bit about me. I've been in corporate America and so forth. I work with women. I'm a fear strategist. I'm a molecular geneticist turned fear strategist, coach, executive coach, and mentor. And Leslie and I do women's retreats, small women's retreats, hopefully international sooner than later again. And I'm all about empowerment and using your voice. So,
and she's also has a TED Talk. She's a TED Talk speaker.
I am a thank you. Science of loneliness and isolation, which is very interesting, especially these times. So that's me in a quick nutshell. So
nice. Okay. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Leslie?
Hi. Hello, and I'm Leslie Ender, and really nice to see you all, and welcome, Yolanda. And I am by education a teacher, and I taught in public schools for many years, and I taught kids with special needs. Then I also had my own educational consulting business, and then I've had my travel business, small group travel for women, which was designed to be small and intimate and going to places that were not touristy and really connecting with local businesses and local people. And that's where Robin and I worked together, and that was really fabulous. And then COVID hit, and that's on hold for a while. And I met Michelle through some women entrepreneurial groups and a mastermind. And I just really liked Michelle, and took me a long time to be brave to reach out to her on a personal level. But it's been nothing but wonderful since then. So I'm so glad I did that. And that's me.
So welcome, 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 welcome. And so, ladies, yeah, I see Anne is not here today, so this is being recorded, so we can get that to her later. Because once we have the conversation, I do want to use this as a tool or a resource for others to be able to start the conversations or kind of pull from this to be able to create their own. Because each one teach one, and so it is being recorded. And so, what I want to say is where do we go from here? Do you want to be a part of the solution? After thinking about our last meeting and the conversations and the other conversations that I've had on this same topic, it just really resonated with me, the mantra racial reconciliation. And one of the things that I've done, I've implemented, one of the actionable items that I've implemented since we last met was meeting with a group of community leaders, African American community leaders, and another leader in the community that I know that's Caucasian, that said that he wanted to have the conversation. He wanted to hear so he could know how to be a part of the solution within his sphere of influence. And so out of that meeting, we had another meeting in person where we formed an advisory board here for the local Jacksonville, Florida area. And so we're focusing on 2 areas that we're going to help, which is the health disparities and the education of educating the seniors and all of the errors, I guess, the millennials, the seniors, the young, and everything in between. And so we have established partnerships where we're going to be going into those communities, bringing them into the community to hear and see the issue. But the first thing we have to do in order for them to be able to hear is to establish that trust, so they're going to be coming in to provide various services that are needed in the underserved community. So that is what I've implemented and what we're doing. We meet again on next month sometime to see where we're at in furthering that cause. And so one of the things that came out of that is that I will be becoming a part of the Veterans Council, Community Council Board here to have a seat at the table because of some things that are going on here locally in Jacksonville that are disadvantageous to African American veterans because there's no voice at the table. So I'm going to be a part of that voice at the table because because it is systemic, we have to be able to integrate, and I'm not going to say infiltrate, integrate within that system to be able to be the change. So that's some of the things that I've done from the previous meeting to now to be a part of that change. So I'm going to open it up to anybody that wants to share their heart. I know, Robin, you had some questions. Yolanda, you wanted to share with us things from a different perspective. And so the floor is open.
Well, let me ask this question. And Yolanda, I'm going to preface it because, so I've established a relationship with Michelle and Pollyann. So I'm going to say it to you too. So I'm going to ask a question and not to offend anyone. I'll put it right out there. So here's something that I find very interesting. And Leslie, you can chime in too. I don't know if you found this. So before, everything was said that the term African American was offensive, that it should be Black, because not every African American meant that it was, frankly, from Africa, right? And not everyone has African descent, and so it's Black people, right? So I have a question, because I hear you saying African American now, and I'm just curious, and I don't mean any offense whatsoever, but now I'm confused because what's the difference, and is there a difference?
Is that an open question?
It's an open question.
Okay.
Whoever wants to take it.
I think we can all, provide some kind of input or perspective in it. For me, I use African Americans and Blacks interchangeably. Um, I know originally somewhere in my lineage, I have some African American descendants. So, I'm not offended if somebody addresses me as Black or African American. I'm not offended by it all. I used to be offended when people called me the N word, but now that I've gotten a greater understanding of it, I'm not offended anymore. I still don't like it, but I'm not offended, and I don't get angry anymore. I just realize that they don't have a true understanding of what that word is. So that's my take on it, Pollyanna.
I guess I'm asking you, is it offensive to say African American or Black?
For me, it would depend on who you're talking to and how they receive it. So I don't know. It wouldn't be offensive to me.
Thanks. Pollyanna?
I'll let Yolanda, you have an answer for that?
I do. Personally, I prefer Black. I've been to Africa, and when I was there, I wasn't really, it was such a huge difference that I wasn't welcome. They definitely see, from my experience, they didn't recognize me as part of them. So I feel that being in America, it's a diverse group of people, and we're Black. I'm sure I probably look just like the next person. Like, I don't know if Pollyanna's from somewhere different, or I won't even use her because she might not want to say that. I have a friend named Shelly who's from Dominica, and she looks just like me, but she would take offense if you called her an American, because until just recently she wasn't an American. She was from somewhere else. So I just feel that it's definitely personal. I feel that it's probably safest to what I try to do is just say a person. Like, I wouldn't even try to say that you're white, but that's what I would say instead of Caucasian, because that's just what I am used to. But what I'm learning now is it's maybe best to just say the Yolanda, or try to describe the person and without using race. But I'm not offended by African American, because I understand probably you don't know. But I was in a meeting a couple of weeks ago and somebody said colored. They kept calling us colored people. And I didn't say anything because I knew that they just didn't know not to say that. But that would have offended a lot of people I know. So I just think it's where you are raised. And like Michelle said, I would just take it like, the person. I would look at the person and figure out whether they're trying to be offensive. So that's how I feel.
Well, I have been to Africa like Yolanda, and I know Africans don't like Americans. From my experience, they like our money. They don't necessarily include us in their livelihood. I prefer Black, and I believe a part of the separation was to signify that I'm African descent. So somebody made up that African American thing. When coming from the Bahamas, I know I have African descent because the slaves came through there. So to come to America, all of us did not have an opportunity to see Africa or to know that experience. I prefer Black. I can go either way. I am definitely offended by the word colored because, like many Caribbean families, I have sisters that look just like you. That's my father's natural children. Okay, so, and she's Black. Don't call her anything else but Black.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just from personal experience. So you can call someone Black, and if they correct you, they're not being disrespectful. It's just what their normal culture is. They can say, I'm African American, or you could just ask, do you prefer Black or African American? And they'll tell you. But unlike Michelle, you can never call me the N word. I don't
Oh,
care.
yeah.
I don't understand. That's the same thing as calling me colored,
You're right.
because whenever it's said, my opinion, it's meant to be derogatory. However kindly they say it, in the back of my mind, it's meant to be a separation, an inequality statement, unlike Black or African American, which are, to me, one and the same.
I agree with that. I mean, I totally agree with that. I just, in the conversations of Black or African American, that's where I was coming from, you know.
Yeah. And it's interchangeable, just like Michelle said, and just like Yolanda said, it's interchangeable. Um, but either way, it depends on your audience. And once you get to know that person, you'll know what they're comfortable with.
And that all, that ties into establishing a relationship, establishing rapport. And, just to piggyback off of Yolanda and Pollyanna, I would very much so take offense to somebody using the word color because of the negative connotation that's been associated with it. Because throughout the years in history, colored has been used as a way to be derogatory. And that's just like, I would take offense to somebody calling me boy or girl, because they used that, because that was used during slavery times and during times where they've been really oppressive. To call a Black man a boy, um, and so to call a Black woman girl, and I don't know some of the other terminology that's used, but that's something that would incite me to anger and probably be ready to fight. But the word, I had a conversation with my mom here about a month or so ago, and when she was sharing with me, the definition of nigger, even though I wouldn't take offense to it now, and I did before, it was a trigger for me. Like, I would see nothing else. I would just see red, and I would go into full-fledged fight mode, not fight or flight, but fight mode. But when she shared with me a response that she had when she encountered it, and it made sense to me because it deflected her anger. She wasn't angry, and it made them so angry. Somebody addressed her in that, using that term, and she said, the only nigger I see is the one standing in front of me. And it incited them so much because the definition of it, I don't know if she said it's been changed in the dictionary, but it used to be someone that was ignorant or someone that, so when she shared that insight with me, it kind of changed how I felt, and it changed how I responded to when somebody says that word or would attempt to say that to me. And so, yeah.
Michelle, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so tell me if I'm wrong. And what I'm understanding you saying is you don't condone someone using the N-word, or you don't like it, or you don't think it's a good term, but you personally have detached yourself from it in a healthy way.
Exactly.
So you don't react.
Exactly. But I will react to the use of the word color.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm
not there.
I would react to it. I mean, I think.
Yeah, I don't want to be there because I feel that even society now knows, like movies and everything, they've pretty much stricken it. Everybody knows that, because to me, the way I feel, it is true what Michelle is saying about the definition, and I've heard that, but the person saying it to you is normally not aware of that, and to me, they know what it meant, and so they're usually saying it to offend. Even if they're later going to say, that's not, I'm just saying you're ignorant about this. No, then there's I just feel that we have to find different ways to communicate. I don't go around calling Hispanic people Mexicans. I don't go around calling whites cracker, but coming up, I probably might have, because, just because, but now I'm trying to be more aware. So I just feel that it would offend anybody saying that word. I mean, well, that's not true, because it doesn't offend her, but I just feel that the person that would probably say it to me, I'm ready to slap them at least, because where is that coming from? I'm not ignorant. And if I am, you can use a different word. That's just how I feel.
And that's the response that they're trying to evoke. So, I've been doing a lot
Right.
of work on really not responding emotionally to people trying to antagonize me, um,
Hmm.
because I want to stay in the mode of Michelle and not go into Mickey. Uh,
Yeah.
but
I
that
understand.
I'm not always successful in that. But I
Hmm.
believe there are those people that don't want to be educated. They want to stay in their ignorance and try to incite me. But then there are
Right.
those that, if they were educated, they probably wouldn't. And so I try to view it from that. I'm not always successful. I'm going to say that right now. But I try to view it from that standpoint because I don't want to expend unnecessary energy or deplete myself of unnecessary energy for somebody that's not even attempting. And we can know, you read people, you trust your instincts. Normally, the first thing you feel is the most valid response. And so
Absolutely.
if I feel that you're trying to incite me and that's your intent, then my response is going to be different.
Well, that's actually why I wanted to ask you kind of the terminology of African American versus Black, because I think as the awareness is coming as to what has to happen now, the shift in the language is to Black people, even as our conversations have transcribed and transformed. That's why I wanted to ask you. So when you were using African American, it kind of took me back for a second because my question is it offensive, right? Because
Right.
I was kind of in this, like, is that offensive to you? So I was kind of like, okay, I thought we weren't there. So that's why I was asking. That's why I kind of brought it up, because I was kind of like,
And something that often happens is we change to acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for 400 years, we've changed to get along.
well, as we
So we've
discussed, right.
yeah, so we've accepted the words that aren't normal for us just to be a part of something instead of anyone beside us changing. We've already, okay, that's what she's going to call me, you
Hmm.
know. And
I have, yeah. I'm sorry. I have a question about that. It's kind of to Pollyanna, but I'd love to hear what everybody thinks as well. Because in that conversation I was talking about where the two people used the word colored, there were two Caucasians in the Zoom meeting, and then there were three African Americans, and none of us said anything in that moment. And I've said it many times to people around me, um, because it bothered me. And I was like, I didn't say anything. And then I wanted to reach out to you, Pollyanna, and ask you, like, did you feel anything, or why didn't we say anything in that moment? But because I know that I feel that the two people weren't trying to offend, just like you, Robin. They were just talking. They weren't even asking about the word. They were having a conversation, asking about something. And they said, so when colored people, blah, 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 I felt that they didn't know, but I didn't say, hey, and I wanted to call them later or reach out to one and say, hey, I just want you to know that that's not a good word, but I didn't. And I want to know, why do y'all think I didn't? And could I have, and it would have been okay, or would I have embarrassed them?
see, that's what we were talking about initially, our first conversation on establishing like trust between us. And as, let's face it, there's this privileged upbringing in America that we have. I mean, there's a disconnect on how Black people have been brought up, and white people have been brought up, right? I mean, that's been established. Unfortunately, our system is broken and been broken for centuries. I mean, let's be honest, right? So we were establishing sort of that trust, and I think initially we can all agree that first conversation we had is like, I'm looking, and Leslie, I'll speak for you too, right? We were saying like, we're looking for, be honest and call me out. Like, I need to know where you are and what you're thinking, and what is, if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong, and teach me, because I need to break what I need to learn, and what I don't know, right?
And
Now, color to me is totally offensive. So I hope I would never say that. Nigger is totally offensive to me. I hope I would never use that in my language. Like that to me, that would be just unnatural to me. So I would hope you would call me and say, like, that is so uncool, and no, like, you can't do that. Here's why.
Yeah, and I agree, especially since the conversation is wide open. And I assume this was some kind of a committee meeting. Were you discussing the Black community, or was it no?
A conversation, right?
I believe, Polly, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that we were just talking about Black Lives Matter, maybe. Yeah, and they were both talking about things going on because they're in different states, like we were all in different states pretty much. So I do believe we were talking Black Lives Matter.
So I think especially now, simply because people are listening more, I think it's absolutely appropriate. And maybe it is better not to do it. Not that it would be wrong to do it during the meeting, but if you wanted to deal with it like a one-on-one issue with somebody, and you just said, hey, you may not realize this, but this term is offensive, and you could, say this is okay, but this term has a lot of history that's offensive to me. And I would say that unless we know there are people who will respond to, they'll respond negatively, but most people don't want to offend. Most people want to, especially in a situation where you are dealing in community affairs and people are there to improve their community. So I would like that for sure. I would like to know if I offended someone always, because we all have our blind spots. Oh, and Yolanda, I was gonna comment. There is something when you're in a I can't help but always compare unhealthy toxic relationships that are like one-on-one to bigger relationships. And I know that when you're in a relationship that isn't healthy, sometimes you have what's called betrayal blindness. There may be little things that happen, but you explain them away, you disassociate them, you put them on a shelf because you don't want to match it up with what that means. So sometimes we have betrayal blindness, and then we wake up or we see, and that's when we have a ton of emotions, because your brain goes click, 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 and you see it when you hadn't seen it before. So I would never speak for you or put words in your mouth, but I just wondered if that resonated with you at all, with your experience. And maybe not, but I see it, when you have someone who has more power in a relationship and someone who's just trying to make it and stay good, sometimes that balance keeps you from seeing things until you're ready.
And so, thank you for that insight, Leslie. I will say that, especially in light of where we are now, it would be an opportunity to educate them on maybe the usage of their words, but also more importantly, because you asked the question too, like why did I not say anything? I think it's crucial now more than ever. I wouldn't say do it in an open forum, depending on how well you know that person and how they would respond in an open forum. But I would definitely reach out and address it and be like, hey, I don't know what you meant by that. I don't know if you meant to be offensive or if you even realized that you were being offensive, but it was offensive to me, and this is why I felt that way, and let me educate you on, the connotation of what that means to me personally, but to Blacks in general, because I don't think there's a whole lot of Blacks that would sit with that, with hearing the word colored and just and they may not voice it, but even in not voicing it, you're losing a portion of your voice. That's just my opinion. because you internalize it. Well, I can't speak for anybody else, but I would internalize that. I'd be beating myself up like, why didn't I speak up? Why didn't I let him, let him or her know that that bothered me? Why did we not have the conversation? I believe in public praise and private, rebuke or correction, because I really don't, I don't want to not offend, but I don't want to cause division, especially within a large group. I don't know how large or small the group was, but the only way to start the conversation and to affect change is to educate and kind of find out where they are with that. You said you perceived that they didn't mean it maliciously. It could be something that they were taught or heard growing up, and so the only way to change that is to educate and give them the opportunity to know that, hey, this is offensive to me. So that was my take on it.
Thank you.
That's true, Michelle, because when you're in comfortable relationships, you have selective hearing.
Mhm.
So what you don't hear from a friend, you hear from a stranger,
Mhm.
even though it's the same conversation. The words just go in differently when it's from a friend or a stranger. And then you have to be cognizant of the angry Black woman,
Syndrome.
right? Because then no one will hear you. Even if you're speaking in a normal voice, they still take it as, oh, that's just all of her feelings coming up and it has no content. And in reality, it is your feelings. And you are speaking for yourself in defense of someone else who doesn't have a voice. Because you selectively hear just like they selectively hear. And most importantly to me is our little conversations, which are huge in my eyes because it makes me talk to other people. I hope everyone talks to other people because that's how we get change. Because how reprimanding in private is exactly what every military person in the world's taught. It's a part of our system, but that has nothing to do with someone in the street
Right.
not doing that. So you always have to be ready. Everybody has to be ready to have that difficult conversation on the spot. On the spot. Because if I see one more Karen video and wonder why no one said anything, that's the problem. You can't wait till and this is my opinion, you can't wait till she's sitting down having a cocktail and say what you did 3 hours ago wasn't right.
I agree with that. I guess it just definitely depends on the environment and circumstance. Like in some of the videos that I've been seeing of the Karens, most definitely it probably would have had a different outcome had I been witness to it or had I been on the receiving end. But that's just the advocate in me coming out, but and it wouldn't be for anyone, because I just have a heart of advocacy, because the greater issue is the lack of humanity that has transgressed or progressed, but the lack of humanity has been specifically focused on the lack of Blacks being viewed as humans.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Well, yeah, I'm very thankful my mom didn't call me Karen, first of all. Right now I feel, don't want to be Karen. But also I find in general, I think a work or formal committee might feel a little different. But in my personal circle of interaction with people, I find that I call stuff immediately if it hits me. I will call people out immediately if I feel like what they're saying is offensive. And most of my encounters, some of it can, because people are very opinionated about, Black Lives Matter, but there's also just some, there's just some flat out rude comments to women in general too. And so if it hits me like that is really wrong and this is something that needs to change in our society, I will call them out. And I do think it's a little different when you're in a work setting. Then you have to think of how the best way to handle it, or a committee. But it is best, I think, as immediate as can be, is the best.
I'm sorry, y'all. I left my water on, so I'm going outside.
No worries. I appreciate that perspective, Leslie.
Yeah.
And personally, yeah, it's good to do that. But the overall, for it to change overall, it has to become the norm to address it in a professional setting. And
Yeah, I can see that.
That has to be the norm. If that doesn't become the norm, then I don't know how.
I was actually asking myself, is it just me? Like, I didn't know if it was because we're all from different parts of the world. I didn't know if in, like, for example, South Carolina or wherever, I didn't know if that was just a word that was accepted. So I was watching the faces of the other Black people, and nobody reacted. So I thought, maybe it's just a Texas thing. I don't know, maybe that's an excuse.
Well, I do think there are certain areas of the country where there's been more acceptance maybe of racism, or I don't know exactly how to say it, but I know that I spent 25 years living in Northern California, and I never heard someone use that term privately or publicly.
I grew up privileged Black, whatever that means. Okay, whatever that means. We always had a housekeeper. I didn't eat store-bought bread until I was 12. There were more girls than boys in the family. I didn't know what racism was until I joined the military at 27, because everything about my life was integrated. My sisters, my surroundings, everything. And then 2:00 in the morning, I was calling my sister on the payphone out of Mayport, Florida, crying, telling her she didn't tell me what this was and I didn't know how to deal with it. I was 27 with a child, biracial child, nonetheless. And being accepted in any country makes it wrong, because we are one nation. And that's what happens, is we conform. We've conformed to it every single time because we just want to be a part of the conversation. So for 25 years of active duty, I conformed. And I can't say that I did anything special to conform. All I could say is there's unwritten rules that it wasn't my turn. You can't have that job. No, it's not your turn. Next time, you can't go here. You can't be a leader when we go to this country. You can't do this. You can't do that. Because it was the unwritten rule. So we never confronted.
And I don't think I agree with that, Pollyanna. I don't think it's ever been a thing of acceptance. I think it's been a thing of conformity or learned behavior.
Learned behavior.
Mm-hmm.
It's just learned behavior. We've learned what the norm is in this context, in this environment, in this area. But I don't think it's ever been acceptance, because even if we accept it externally, it seems to be that way. Internally, we're internalizing that. And it's yeah.
But sometimes, especially the younger generation, they don't even know a difference to know that that's not okay.
Yeah.
Right. And they
So
don't really want to hear you talk about it. I mean, they just, oh, mom, it's okay, you know, whatever. That's not how, they don't see it. And it's so funny to me that my grandmother, my mother, and then myself, and then my daughter, we all have different sensitivity levels on this. Whereas, like you're saying, my daughter's is almost non-existent. My grandmother's was very, very high. My mother's is very high. And I guess like you, Pollyanna, just privileged Black that I didn't really, well, probably before I went to the military, I didn't see it because I was surrounded by just family and we all looked alike. And the people who didn't, we just all got along. Small town. But in the military, everybody was diverse, so I didn't see it then. But looking back, it was definitely there. And now I wouldn't have even I wouldn't have even thought to say something to these ladies before, but because now we're in this platform where it's okay to talk about and people are willing, like you, Leslie and Robin, to listen, I thought about saying something, but again, I wasn't sure if I should. And they both, one of them said she lived in a town where it's I think she said 100% Caucasian. And the other one grew up with racist parents. So I just, again, felt like they just don't know any better.
You're really doing them a favor, especially if your sense is that they are trying to be their best selves. They probably, if they have blind spots and you can tell them clearly, I think that's great.
but
I
see,
think it is
Leslie,
too. I think, go ahead, I'm sorry.
to me, that's where the issue lies. Because even though I thought they were their best selves before, I'm finding out their best self is something else. I don't
Exactly.
know that anymore.
Yeah. But I guess what I'm saying is maybe their best self had a lot of room to grow, and maybe they're looking at who that is and who they want to be. And if you can be part of the solution, you cannot know whether your words, I mean, if you share that and then the next meeting it's said again, then you know that they didn't take it in, or they didn't care any number, but it didn't change. But a lot of people, they will attempt to integrate it if their focus is on self-growth and on wanting to be a different and better person. And it is kind of a wake up, Yolanda. I think you're saying you feel awakened, and I think a lot of white people, they don't want to, they live in their world, they have all their problems, and they don't want to necessarily see or hear what it's like for another segment of the population in the US whose experiences can be very, very different. It's just like anything. It's easier to not see it, because once you see it, again, if you're somebody who cares and wants to grow and cares about humanity, as Michelle said, then you have to address it and do something about it. So I think, but yeah, no buts. I think that all of us, especially maybe Robin and I, in settings where there are Black people or not, we need to speak up when something is said, because we're just as guilty as not wanting to offend, not wanting, and things that are said kind of they just go on and nobody notices or nobody does anything. So I think for us, I'm speaking for you again, Robin.
No, you can go right ahead. But I think it's true, though. I think it's
important.
But I think you're so right, though. It's what is the impact, right? You can say, I don't know what the intention, our intentions could be so pure, but if you're, I almost think it's a responsibility on all parts, right? And I think, Yolanda, if you do call them out and you come to the next meeting and they do the same thing, at least you tried. I mean, I would keep calling someone out. I would keep calling them out. But But until we have the conversation, until the awareness is brought, I think, I think we had this conversation like intention versus impact, right? You can have the greatest intention, but to make the impact, you actually have to do something about it. And so the awareness has to be there. And again, there's these cycles that have to be broken. Until that awareness and enlightenment is there, yeah, maybe their intention isn't there, but someone's got to frankly smack them in the head and say, no, it's offensive. And the conversation, this kind of thing, and if it starts like in this group of 5, and then we know, and we can go out, and then it can keep spreading, right? I mean, this is organically how we can start making the changes.
And I would say this is, if it's something that's still bothering you, and you there's no peace, it's something that you need to address. And once you share that with them, the responsibility is on them to act on it. But silence on either part is acceptance.
And one thing that that I have learned in the last couple of years, just in my own personal growth, is that I'll just speak for myself. If I'm in a meeting and there are things being said that I feel are inappropriate, maybe it's blindness, maybe it's not, but I may give them the benefit of the doubt and share why I think that's inappropriate or offensive, and that I would prefer that they not say that or use this instead. And then let's say it doesn't change anything, then we can decide what we're going to do. But I could say, and I find this is it's not tons of discussion, it's not getting emotional. It's like, when you say, I'll use colored, because we talked about that. When you use the word colored, that makes me feel disrespected, well, you guys could fill in the words better, but it makes me feel bad, basically. And you can use how you describe it. And if you continue to do that, then I will ... and then you can fill in. Maybe maybe I will decide that I only want to communicate with them in email, or maybe I have to, measure what the stakes, but maybe it's a time for me to say, I'm not going to participate if you're going to continue with that.
Or maybe they're not part of the group. Maybe they're not part of that group.
Well, there's someone's running the group. You're right. If you have some charge, they're out of the group. If you do this, you are out of the group. But sometimes your only option is to make a statement, and everybody has to have their own individual. You have to weigh it all out. But I personally hope that I would continue. And if I feel like people are ignoring my input and hurting, using words or terms that I find offensive, and they're not changing, then I can go a next step and just state, you do this makes me feel this, so I'm going to this. And just for example, I think Mississippi is now removing the Confederate flag, but they didn't do it out of the kindness of their heart. They did it because financially and politically they were getting enough heat that it was going to start costing them revenues and federal dollars. I'm not sure exactly all, but they agreed that they are going to redo the flag. But thus, before this, there was no consequences really for them. They didn't have social and or financial or legal consequences for that, and it didn't change.
Sometimes people aren't going to change unless there's a consequence, which is, I don't know, I believe that speaks more to why we should call it out when we see it, not just in the social or personal environment, but in a professional environment. Because the consequence is if you keep doing this, you know, we're gonna be divided. And if there's division, there's no progression for anyone.
Absolutely.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something, Polly. I really feel looking back and even in the moment that they just didn't know. Like I said, it was more about how I reacted that bothered me, that I didn't say anything. And that's what I was mostly questioning. I also feel that we have a very tender group. I really like them, but it's not we haven't known each other a long time. So I didn't feel like, I feel that they're trying to help and I feel that they're trying to learn. So I didn't want to harm that. I didn't want them to feel like, oh Lord, I'm not going to say anything because I, unknowingly said the wrong thing. So that was a big part of it too. And just being in here with you guys who I don't know, I also want to admit that, there's distrust with white people. So I have never felt, even in corporate America, I played the game. I pretended I didn't hear the little things, and I just acted like, oh, I'm okay and we're great. And I know that you're thinking, I remember buying this, a Mercedes, and I remember hearing my boss and one of his friends, they didn't hear me. Oh yeah, she thinks she's up there or something. And I must be paying her too much. Just that kind of stuff. So I've learned that you act a certain way. And so now I'm trying to learn how to change and to be okay with, with speaking how I feel. But there is distrust. Like, I don't know if you guys are honest that y'all really do want to learn and change, or if y'all are just, saying that so that y'all don't look bad. I'm just being honest. And I don't mean you. I am talking to you guys, Leslie and Robin, but I don't mean specifically you, but I'm just saying now when I interact, and I have been with white people, I don't know for sure that their intentions are pure.
Well,
So.
that's wise. I mean, that's wisdom, because you don't. And hopefully, anyone in this forum, I really hope we can create some trust. I do, because being a white woman, I hear all sides. I actually have I won't. I hear all sides. And there are, I think, a lot of genuine people who are realizing they've got some big blind spots and are doing some self-analysis a lot. And I think there are other people that, because of fear or political alignment or fill in the blank, are double down. But I hope that that's like that's like a minority of the voices I hear, but they're there. And somehow some of them are feeling more emboldened during this time. So yeah, it's a complex situation. But from where I sit, and again, I'm probably not a nationwide demographic by any means, but I hear a lot of people sincerely wanting to listen and self-reflect and be a part of change.
Yeah.
I would say it's the majority of the voices that I hear. What about you, Robin?
I agree, and I'll second that. And it's interesting you said that, Yolanda, because when we first talked, Pollyanna said the same thing to us, virtually exactly the same thing.
Oh, wow. Okay,
and
good. I was feeling bad that I said it. Or just
no, well, that's just it.
I was like, oh, Lord, Pollyanna's going to kill me. I shouldn't have said something.
No. We want you to say what you're thinking.
We want you to say that. And I appreciate you saying that. And it's funny because I almost wanted to say that like several sentences ago that you had said that to us, Pollyanna.
Oh, how funny.
And establishing that. And you said, like, I don't know if I can trust you or not. And, but that's how we have to start these conversations. And I hope you can trust us, because I'll speak for you now, Leslie, as well, I think. I know her and she knows me. And I think hopefully Pollyanna and Michelle can trust us now. My heart is my heart. And I will tell you anything about me and put it out on the line, because that's how I live my life. Anything you want to know about me? That's how I live my life. And I think, Leslie, you're right. We probably aren't the majority, but this is how the conversation has to start. And I'm willing to say, I don't know. And I recognize things. And that's why I'm asking you the questions I'm asking. And that's why I felt comfortable enough to say, tell me the difference of Black and African American. And the only reason I can do that is because, honestly, because Pollyanna, you said last week, like, or 2 weeks ago, whenever we spoke, it all blends together now. But because you said that, and I feel like I can come right back at you guys and say, okay,
Right.
here's where I'm at. Because right now I'm really confused. I thought I was like getting there, and now I feel like, well, am I not getting there? So ask away and put us on the line. But I also ask you then to help educate, because obviously we kind of are, Leslie, you and I are in the minority, and we're trying to learn. And my kids are 23, 25, and 28 and out there and marching. And my 23-year-old daughter is, you know, a New Yorker. Now she's with us right now until she can get back. And an advocate teaching me beyond, thank God she's as wise as she is. And we're watching various shows and all sorts of stuff and documentaries. And, but we need to learn. We need to break these cycles. So ask away and put us on the line, and I'll tell you what I can tell you, and I'll listen and I'll learn. And, but this is how it has to start. So.
And I will say
Thank you.
that, I will say this, this is how it starts. But with anything else, the trust issue, that you know, it takes a while to establish trust, and it only takes a moment to destroy it, sometimes irrevocably. But one of the key elements in establishing trust is being able to be honest and being able to be, you know, forthcoming about what your challenges are, what your issues are, and in having the tough conversations. One of the things I think we're doing, which I think is awesome, because, you know, Leslie, you and Robin know each other. I know Pollyanna. Pollyanna knows Yolanda. I only knew Leslie through some masterminds, and we didn't really interact on a personal level during those masterminds. I just really knew of her. But I'm open and willing to have the conversation. But when we have the tough conversations, some of the tools I think that would help would be, when we're having the tough conversations, to practice under explaining, you know, why we view things the way that we do. Just, this is why I don't trust you, because I don't know you, not because I don't know you because you're white, or I don't know you because you're Black. I don't know you. And so I have to get to know you. And part of getting to know you is letting you know the pain points that I have, based on our conversation and what you say. And if you hit a pain point, I'm going to let you know, but my delivery is going to be very mindful, because we are establishing trust. Like, it's not, I don't know you. So how I deliver, you know, to you what my pain point is why I'm going to try to be very mindful of that. And then, you know, what we've been doing, asking the questions to keep the momentum going, asking clarifying questions like, what did you mean by that? Or, you know, this is how this affected me. And when we ask the questions, ask to understand, not just to respond. And not just to get our, you know, our viewpoint, because I, for myself, I know why I'm angry. I know why I'm frustrated. I know, because it's something that I've lived with all my life. But because I wasn't the privileged, you know, I didn't have Black privilege. And so I listen a lot, not just to respond, but I listen to understand, so that I know how to respond and to convey what my challenge is, so that is part of having a tough conversation and part of establishing that trust. And I don't think that's just a Black-white thing. It shouldn't be. That's how conversation should go, and trust should be. But it's not always, because of the mistrust that's been ingrained because of experiences, if that makes sense.
Makes total sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and I think absolutely what Michelle said, trust is slow built and can be set back really quickly. And it's not, then you have to start again. It's not like you go back to where you were necessarily. You have to start again.
And if it's important enough to you, you'll be willing to start again. You know, I'm not saying that as an excuse to have, you know, not to address the mistrust or the hurt that's caused by, you know, your trust being broken. But I'm just saying, in having conversations, part of having the tough conversations is honestly realizing probably that trust will be broken. There's the potential for it to be broken, but then how do you recover and move beyond that
And
brokenness?
that is a key, isn't it? It's the repair. It's repairing when something has gone wrong. But yeah, I definitely want to be here with an open heart, and I want to be here if, if I'm saying something that hits a pain point, that's a good way to say it. Even if I'm unaware or I don't understand, or, I want to hear. I want to hear, because that's our conversation. When we share it, it just gets amplified. And I've had friends who are really interested. And some friends have said to me, wow, those are such amazing, like articulate, smart Black women that you're talking to. Like, how did you meet them? Which I think is awesome, but it's also speaks to
It's so insulting.
Yes.
That right there, that's the thing.
Wow.
It's a
That's insulting.
quantifier.
Like we should be in a zoo because it's so rare to see that. Yeah.
That is a definite pain point right there.
But
I don't mean to be laughing about it, but it's eye-opening. I mean, our conversations multiplied, even if it's just in our own circles. I think people who want to hear safely can listen.
You should invite somebody to come and join us, Leslie. Just one or two.
Right.
But I
Okay.
do have a question. I want to know when you hear the phrase Black Lives Matter, what does that mean?
To me,
Hmm. And to Robin.
okay, well, I absolutely get it, because it's saying that in this country, because of I'm tragically, I just think if we saw everything that happened, we only get to see the things cut on film, but Black lives are not valued. We know 100% that someone in the exact same situation who's white is going to walk away much differently than someone who is Black. So Black lives, sadly, in this country do not seem to matter as much. And that's really very, very sad and needs to change. So it's not saying that other lives don't matter, but the Black community has suffered so much. And I think the disparities in health and schools, and which was ripped wide open with COVID. I mean, there's all this talk, but the reality is, in the Black community, people are more likely to die. And so on all levels, we need to up our game as a country to really show that all lives matter. And we'll only do that by actually looking at the Black community and saying, yes, you matter, and we're going to change the way we do policing, and we have to change the way we look at healthcare and we look at schools. And I'll tell you, I watched the documentary 13th. I don't know if any of you have watched that.
I told you about that. Yeah.
You did. It was exceedingly painful for me to watch. So I would say trigger warnings.
Yeah. Did you guys see it?
Being the age I am,
I watched it.
yeah, being the age I am, I don't remember all of it clearly, but I remember a lot of it as a child. I was a child when the civil rights movement came, and also understanding this movie that was called The Birth of a Nation. I had never heard of that movie, but watching that movie clarified to me where a lot of the profiling and the fear, and why they instilled fear, and why they set up Black men to get in prison. There was a reason, because then they could use slave labor. I mean, it was, I mean, there were scholars on there that were, you know, well versed in this, laid it all out, and it was, I just never saw it before. I mean, I didn't know these things. I knew a lot about my own experiences, but to see it laid out in history, and this is why this was. And I know you saw the images of the man and woman with their guns. Where was that? South Carolina? There was a white man and woman, and there were demonstrators going by, and they were standing in their driveway with guns. The demonstrators were peaceful, but you talked to the guy afterwards, he was absolutely certain that he was going to be killed, his animals were going to be killed, his wife was going to be raped, and he was dead serious. He was terrified. So it's a disconnect from reality, but it is something that is part of our national. I don't know how to articulate.
Are you talking about the recent video with the guy and his wife?
Yes.
Saw that today on
Had
the
an
Today Show.
AK-47
Yes.
and wasn't arrested? That video?
Yes. Yes. And they, oh yeah, I think Trump tweeted it, but I think that speaks to volumes to the propaganda, misinformation,
That speaks to
institutional
why did he have an
racism.
AK-47 and not get arrested? That's what
Exactly. What would happen? Yeah. I mean, we just have to reverse what it would look like.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. So
It was on the Today Show today.
It is something. And they have like a mansion, it looks like, and they are well dressed. And she's got a handgun and he's got an AK-47. Is that it? I don't know what they are.
Oh, I did see that. Okay.
And they feel, and then they interviewed him after. And these are just, there was no violence. This is just,
they were just walking.
They were just walking by.
Down the street.
Exactly.
Okay.
They had broken into a gated community because they were calling the mayor out. I don't remember what city it was.
They didn't break into the gated community. The gate was open and they walked in.
Okay. Well, see, I listened to
so
the
they didn't break in.
That's what the guy said.
They walked in.
So they did nothing, basically.
They were walking down the middle of the street. It might have been a private road.
Yes, that was.
It was a gated community. But who's to say they weren't going to visit the mayor?
Right.
Okay, there was no question or anything like that. But Robin, what does Black Lives Matter mean to you?
Oh boy. So, it's a hard question to answer to you guys. As I've learned, you know, I've learned this. What it means to me is, one, it's offensive to say all lives matter, because it really is about the Black community right now. We have to protect Black lives because of what is going on, and what would be the correct, not the correct term to say, my vocabulary has, I think COVID.
Don't think it, just say it.
No, just the inequality, the brutality of the police, and the inequality of life. I mean, I think the police need training. I mean, I think they're not certified, they're not taught, I really feel like they're high school punks that were bullied, that are put in uniform, and frankly are racist, that just, you know, look at any of these,
The institution is race. The institution
system is so
police.
broken.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at, I mean, we could pick any of the situations, but let's just take George Floyd. I mean, the fact of the matter is, one, it's brought into because of social media and video having cell phones, all of that platform. That's why we all know it. But it's not having any rights, right? I mean, it's guilty before even being able to say anything. The whole idea of guilty before, innocent before proven guilty or anything. And I heard it when Annie was on. There was a woman, Annie, who was on the first call, about her sons and her grandchildren, and you see it in the news with kids being told what to say. If they're in a situation in public with police or in a public situation, how to get out of it, what to say. I mean, you have told us about situations. Black Lives Matter has to be on the forefront of trying to change this country that is not, has not been established on any equal ground whatsoever. This quotes land of opportunity, this quotes, melting pot. What we've all been born into and brought into and fed is basically hypocrisy, I think. And unfortunately, Black people, however we're gonna say that, are the victims. And so you are the population that the change has to happen with you. And we have to start with you in order to start. I feel we have to start with the Black Lives Matter movement in order to heal that, and then we can possibly make changes in the system to heal whatever else is broken. But
I think if you make changes in a system for equality and justice, and you put in resources in communities where there's poverty, that actually everyone's going to benefit. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yolanda,
but
what
we
is
have to equal.
I don't want to say that I'm not under, I'm just saying when we make these changes, it's going to help the Black community and bring it like this where it should be. But I think along those lines, it's going to be helpful for everybody in the country. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, maybe we'll create a country that is a country that people are people.
And so,
I
just want to say this. The real change is going to begin to be implemented by us having conversations like we're having now. That starts it, to address the pain points, to address the not understanding the plight and the things that we endure on a daily basis as Blacks. The next step in doing that is being okay with going to be in an uncomfortable position to affect that change. So there's sacrifices that are going to have to be made. We've been talking a lot about some of the pain points and the misunderstandings and, of how we're labeled and what we're called and things like that in our experiences. And the goal in working towards a solution is, what can we do individually within our spheres of influence? And then what can we do together collectively to begin to affect and impact that change? Like you said, impact versus intent. And so to that end, some of the things that I've seen, there have been a lot of people that have reached out to me that said they want to be a part of the conversation. They want to be a part of the solution. They want to help. How can I help? Help me to understand. And I've given them the opportunity, and I'm just using this as an example. And I've given them the opportunity to be a part, to come in and have the conversations, to listen, to begin to understand. And they will say yes, 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 up until the point that it's time to have the conversation. Or I say, well, the conversation is going to be recorded. Then it's a no-show. And I'm not speaking about anybody, has been a part of this group, or I've invited to be a part of this group that's not shown. I just want to put that caveat out there.
We're here.
Or, right. Or but because to me, who's here is who's supposed to be here and who's ready to implement that or, make impact. But some of the things that come up, they have to confront their own maybe blind spots where it comes to race and wanting to be a part of the change, because the fear comes in, well, how is it going to impact my image, or how is it going to impact my brand, or how is it going to impact my relationships with those that I hold near and dear to me. So that's, we can talk about generalities, but what specifically can we do individually and can we do collectively to be a part of that solution, in addition to the conversations that we're having and building and establishing that trust. And like what I was sharing earlier, one of the things that I've done is we've identified an area that we're going to begin to do that, like you touched on, Leslie, the health disparities. So a group of us here in this community, Black and white, because it's going to take us coming together, being unified, have taken on the challenge, and we're addressing health disparities in one of the disadvantaged portions of the community and the education. And so we're all pooling our resources and providing and meeting the needs of those disparities. And so that's how we begin to be a part of the solution. We impact how we can using the resources and the education that we have. That is how we begin to impact the change, and knowing that it's not going to be overnight. We're in it for the long haul, and we educate and we empower those that are coming along with us and those that will come behind us on how they can too begin to be able to impact that change. It's going to come with education. It's not going to come without a price or a cost. But are we willing to commit to that? And when I say we, I'm not just saying us. I mean we, generalizing. So you have to come to that on your own. Yeah, and Jen just said that she's getting ready to come on here in a sec.
Well, I'm in North Carolina and in a new neighborhood. And just to the statement about the gated neighborhood, Leslie, in my gated neighborhood that we just sold our house in, the police followed my son home when he got off the school bus.
I'm so sorry.
So it's, it's personal.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't first understand or have a clear definition of what Black Lives Matter means to us personally, not the big image in the sky, because in North Carolina, I today cannot do what Michelle is doing in Florida. Because in every community, there are similar but different requirements. I wish I was in Jacksonville because I would be right out there with her. Okay. But now here we sit. What is the definition of Black Lives Matter? It's not general, it's a personal. How do you see this cause? What does this mean when you see someone wearing a shirt that says Black Lives Matter? Did they pick it up? What does that do to your brain? What does it really mean? It's whatever you think it is,
well, I'm here.
or not. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's your own experiences coming together to define that term. And it's personal. It's not general. It's purely personal. It's because my 17-year-old doesn't know what it means because he's never had to have any impact with it. So what does it mean?
Well, yeah, I can get real personal because.
But first, just 1 second. I really would like, because personally, I really want to hear what in 1 minute, what does Black Lives Matter mean personally to you?
In 1
To
minute.
me,
So can I say something? 'Cause I'm actually going to have to jump off shortly. So I don't have to worry about my sons like you at a bar at night. I don't know what that's like. But I will say for me personally, I have been in Leesburg walking with the groups. And it's very strange because there's a huge Confederate statue that sits right in front of the courthouse that they're all wondering what to do with. But it's teaching me to have conversations. It's teaching me to, I will certainly stop and defend anything I see that I don't think is just. I have absolutely no problem. I will pull over on the side of the road because I don't like Leesburg police. I think they are these high school boys that were bullied. I will stop behind a car. I absolutely will. And I will walk with people. And that's what I know I can do right now here locally is join and have these conversations with you ladies and see where we can go. So that's what I personally can do. Because I do have my children. I don't know what it's like to have my kid followed home. That's where that privilege comes in. But I can join in here and I can take the knee and sit for 8 minutes, 46 seconds, you know, with them. I can sit and thank the mayor for coming out. I can sit and agree with the Confederate. I don't even know why it's there, but I can listen. And I certainly will defend, that's for sure.
Well, I want to say to you, Robin, thank you so much for agreeing to have the conversation. We're going to continue the conversation. So I know you have to jump off here in a minute, but know that we're going to continue it. And we're going to continue doing the things that we can do to impact, you know, our communities, but as well as how we impact one another to kind of continue to spread that. And so I just wanted to share that because I know you said you got to jump off in a minute. And then for Jen that's just coming in, hey Jen.
Hi, ladies.
Pollyanna posed the question, what does Black Lives Matter mean to you personally? And so, you know, we're going to continue in that vein, but just kind of wanted to bring you up to speed a little bit. So over the last, between this meeting, the last meeting and now, we've identified, you know, we've talked about why we are angry and why we are frustrated as Black people, and, you know, us building the trust and the bond between us ladies, because we don't know one another, well, some of us don't. And then moving beyond there to begin to impact within our communities individually, but also here with us collectively. So that in a nutshell, I think covered it, right? Okay, and so now the question has been posed. What does Black Lives Matter mean to you personally? And Robin just gave what it means to her personally. And I think we're going on to whoever's next. I mean, I'll save mine for last, why it's important to me.
Okay.
Pollyanna shared hers. 1 second, Leslie. And Pollyanna shared hers, but she can share it again. But then, you know, Leslie, Yolanda, Jen chime in on what it means to you. And Leslie, you wanted to share?
Okay, I'm going to take the less than 1 minute challenge because I can be wordy. I had personal experiences as a young child and as a young teacher, and as that made Black community and Black people very human to me and very important to me. And I won't go into the whole story, but I do remember making a commitment that I've not followed through on with some students that I saw in Texas that just didn't have a chance. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to do something about this. So that's on a personal level. And so I guess I'm here again on a personal level because I very much care about other people and humanity and equality, and it breaks my heart to see when others are hurting and don't feel like. The worst thing is when Yolanda was saying she pretends she doesn't hear it and she's rah-rah and keeps going in her corporate America because that's what she has to do to survive. And we want to change that. I want to change that. I want to be a part of the change. And I don't know exactly, other than these conversations where I am in my I'm not near a big metropolitan area or anything, so I have to figure out exactly what that looks like more. But right now, looking at how personally I can be a part of the change, and for me, the first step is this conversation. Well, I probably was more than a minute, but anyway.
Well, I thank you for your input on that. So, Jen, what does Black Lives Matter mean to you?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Michelle. Hello, ladies. I apologize that I didn't meet you on the last call, but I'm happy that I'm here. I've had coaching calls all morning. You can tell because I rolled out of bed and I look like a disaster. But I'm excited to be here. So Black Lives Matter, what does it mean to me? That's such a good question. And for me, I come from I grew up very culturally oriented. I have a Cuban background. Both my parents are Cuban immigrants. I was raised outside of New York, so like near North Jersey. I've lived in New York. I've lived in Brooklyn. I've lived all over the world, to give you a little bit of an insight of who I am and what I do. And I started my career as a travel blogger, and I've been doing this for 5 years, and I carry clean water filters to developing countries. And then 2 years ago, I started my coaching business, and I started teaching, women how to build online brands and businesses and things like that.
And just a caveat, Jen is a phenomenal woman. I met her some years ago hiking and have been connected with her ever since and reconnected because, we're doing our things. But I love Jen. I love her passion. I love her fierceness. And I'm glad that she accepted being a part of this group because I think she has some very crucial things to share that will help us in what we're doing. So sorry, I just wanted to.
No, thank you. I appreciate that, Michelle. What it means to me is the care of humanity and humans. I totally understand. Well, totally obviously the aspect that I possibly can because I'm not a Black woman, right? And I know my privilege and I understand my privilege, but I have tons of friends that look Black, that are Black, and have experienced racism. And for us to say that it doesn't exist, or for us to say that, and I always get upset when people say all lives matter. Like, I don't think that's the point of Black Lives Matter at all. And so for me, it's just, it breaks my heart, and it's a humanitarian thing. It's a human thing. It's a human problem. It's a conversation that starts within the home. It's being able to have your daughters, my future daughters and sons, pick toys. And I have 2 nieces, and both of them are white. And they go to the supermarket, and the blonde one picks up a Black doll, and my sister doesn't care. My sister lets her walk around with it, whatever, you know what I mean? And it's that type of scenario, right? Like, they don't, that upbringing, that conversation, being able to say, like, it doesn't matter. So I don't know if that specifically answers your question, but it matters. It matters to me. It matters to the conversations of the people that I have, because I do think it's a human problem. It's not just, a white person's problem. I think it's a global thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, it answers the question because it answers the question about what Black Lives Matters means to you. So yeah, it answers the question. And you're just picking right up in the conversation that we've been having. So I know, Pollyanna, that question, is Yolanda?
What Black Lives Matter means to me, it's like a wake-up call to the world that we're here. We need you to see what's happening to us. We need you to recognize, like some of you already said, it's not saying no other life is important, but it's saying our life is not being valued to the level we need it to be, and we need you to wake up and see it. Under a minute.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to do my best to keep it under a minute because that's what we've said. So what Black Lives Matters means to me is the voice of something that has been unvoiced for years that I've carried in everything that I do and everything that I've done. And all the times that I have not spoken up for myself because of not fear, but of having conformed to get ahead and to not survive, but to gain access to the tables and the things that I have access to. So it's to me, it means giving voice to all the years of repression and oppression and inequality and injustice. But on a more personal note, what Black Lives Matters to me means changing the thought process of my granddaughter, who at 6 years old, when she sees a cop, pees her pants, and already she's in her little minute brain is conforming to what society feels about Black lives. And I want her to know that her life matters, regardless of her skin. And so that's one of the reasons that it's personal to me. It's personal to me because even though people perceive me to be educated, intelligent, and articulate, they perceive me to be that in spite of the color of my skin. And I want them to perceive me to be that, not in spite of the color of my skin, but because I am human. And I'm tired of fighting that fight, of having you see beyond my color. I just want you to see me, period, not see me by color. And Black Lives Matters to me because I'm tired of waking up fearful that I'll get a phone call that something has happened to my daughter because of the color of her skin and because of how dependent and vocal she is about it. And anybody that I care about of color, I don't want to wake up with that fear anymore that I'm going to get that phone call. So that's what Black Lives Matters means to me. And know that I haven't done anything to be a part of the change. Everybody got silent. With that being said, that's why it's so important for us to not just have these conversations, but be willing to risk and make the sacrifice, because it's going to be a sacrifice when you begin to speak up vocally in professional settings, in religious settings, in political settings. Because if you don't take a stand, then we as humanity is going to fail. And we can't do it in a cyclone, separate and apart from one another. Because honestly, that is the goal, is to bring division and to bring a race war, honestly, my personal opinion. But I have to be that voice to integrate into the system because of the systemic issue, to give voice to that. You, Robin, you, Leslie, you, Jen, because you're just as passionate about it. That's where it begins.
Well, I just want to say, Michelle, thank you so much for sharing, for being vulnerable enough to share so close to your heart, because then it hits us, and to trust us with that. I really appreciate that. And to me, it's a precious jewel that we, hold on to. So thank you. And yeah, I feel like for whatever reason, God's brought me to a place where, yeah, I'm ready to do that. Everywhere, anywhere, just speak the truth and not worry about the repercussions, because in a way that's very selfish. But I guess I'm at a point where I'm building everything again. So it's just going to be built around
It's also
humanity
your
and
safety.
justice and love and
Leslie,
yep.
it's also your safety. Okay, because you can put yourself in situations where you are overly vocal and your group is not that way. And then it becomes dangerous for you because there's going to have to be another way to approach it. So always trust your gut, you know, because
Okay. Yeah. I don't feel like, I mean, I don't feel personally in danger. Um, I hope I won't be, but I'm, you know, my voice is my voice. It's not going to stop me. And I do feel, I mean, when our president is tweeting and accidentally tweeting and doing what he's doing, he's clearly evoking a civil war, race war. I mean, what else could it be? And so, but it doesn't change my voice. I hope that I can stay true to God and true to what I believe in the face of whatever. That's my hope always.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. My mood took a shift. But having these conversations is what's needed. Getting an understanding of what it's like a day in the life of walking in our shoes is what's needed. Us supporting one another in being a part of that change is what's needed. Us learning to trust one another, even with the hard stuff and having the hard conversations is what's needed. And like I was saying earlier, it takes a while to establish trust, but part of establishing that trust is speaking your truth. And then opening yourself up for the hard questions or the questions like you asked earlier, Robin. And I don't know if you had any other questions, but Jen, you know, one of the questions that Robin asked earlier was it offensive to differentiate, you know, African American and Black and colored? And we all responded to that. And then the conversation just took off from there. So I know you said you had questions. Do you have any more questions, Robin? And do you have any questions, Jen?
I actually, I don't, and I'm sorry, I do have to go because I've got a call to jump on. So Jen, I'm sorry, I'm not going to get a chance to hear you very much. Hopefully next time. And Yolanda, it was nice to meet you and great to see you all again. So till the next time, I'm going to have to jump.
We'll see you on the next call. I'll be sending out an email when, you know,
Okay.
when the next one is, because we do have to continue the conversation.
Definitely.
All right.
Thank you all.
Bye, Robin.
Bye-bye.
Is Yolanda, you talking?
Yes.
You're on mute.
Y'all couldn't hear me? Why not? No, I was saying I need to leave as well. Is this the best time? Are y'all about to start another topic, or should I have to leave it like I guess about 10 minutes?
Yeah.
No,
Same here.
no, we're not about to start another topic. We're just having, this is free
Conversation.
flow. We're having the conversation, yeah. And so
Okay. I
wherever
just
it
didn't want
goes,
to be.
goes.
Okay.
Yeah. Michelle, I don't think I have any questions. I mean, yeah, I'm interested to hear, I mean, briefly, I guess, if Yolanda, you and, I'm sorry,
Pollyanna.
Paulina, okay. I was like, I can't see her name. Want to share what your response was to Robin? I mean, I'd love to hear it. If it's offensive to call you Black or African American,
Or colored.
yeah, or colored, yeah. I feel like I wouldn't call somebody colored. I wouldn't. Yeah, I don't know why that doesn't even feel good to me. But
I said that I prefer to be called Black. I feel that having been to Africa, they don't recognize me as part of their group.
Right.
And I didn't feel part of their group. So I do believe that here, being an American, having lived here my entire life, I'd prefer to just be called American. But if you need to differentiate what color I am, then black is my preferred color. I mean,
Okay.
topic, terminology.
Yeah.
I said black as well because
Okay.
I too have been to Africa and they don't like Americans. So, and
Yeah.
African American was just another way for them to separate us,
Right.
because we all know that we came from African heritage one way
Right.
or another,
Yeah.
but it was just another separating tool. And
Got
I
it.
also said it was okay to ask what the person was comfortable with because they would tell you. And it's good that she even wanted to know, but I prefer black.
That's good. And Michelle?
And I said that I didn't care one way or the other now, only because of experiences that I've had. And I know that, I have some African heritage somewhere in my genealogy. So it didn't really bother me. I can call me African American or call me black. I've been to Tunisia. And, I know that there's some Africans that don't like blacks and they don't consider me African American, but it doesn't bother me. Now, what I do have an issue with is being called colored. And I
Yeah.
used to have a challenge being called nigger, but I don't anymore, only because, after having a conversation with my mom and she told me what the true definition of nigger was somebody that's ignorant, I don't have the same visceral reaction that I've had previously. And I've just adopted her response, which is the only one that I see is the one that I'm looking at right now, because that just puts it back on them and they're either going to get mad or whatever, but it takes that anger off of me, because I want to stay in Michelle mode and not Mickey mode, for those of you that know Mickey Pollyanna. So
I was going to say Mickey mode.
So, because I believe the true heart of change is going to be educating those that are doing it in ignorance and those that really want to learn and change and want to be a part of the solution. Educate them, and call them on the things that they may have said or done in ignorance. And if they did it maliciously, it doesn't matter how much we educate them, they're not going to change. But to educate those that we come across that truly don't know or want to change. So that was my.
I'm
Thank
not
you.
there. I'm triggered by the word.
Yeah, I mean, it just
because
doesn't
it's
even
done,
sound good.
yeah, and it's done in hate,
Yeah. The majority of the
regardless.
time.
So, and
I don't
even
know,
when they say N-word, you've thought of the word.
Yeah.
What's the first part of sin?
Right.
well, you have to have been under a rock for the last 100 years to use that word and not know the intent and hatred. Maybe there really are people who don't, but it's up there in my book as one of the most offensive terms that, I would never use.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah. And so the conversations that we've been had, I mean, it's been going up in different directions, but it's all been good. And it's all been educational, and it's all been, I believe, for me, healing, but also impactful and giving me ammunition as I continue to go into these rooms and sit at the tables in my community, proactively, having a seat at the table to begin to implement that change. As I shared earlier, I had another meeting with another group of community leaders, African American, with one of my Caucasian friends that wanted to have the conversation and wanted to be a part of the solution, but wanted to hear from African American, Black leaders, their heart and the challenges, so they know how to help. And so because of that, we formed an advisory group. and we're going to target 2 areas in the underserved communities, which is the health disparities and the education, so we can meet the needs to build that rapport and that trust so that we can, unitedly begin to affect change here in Jacksonville locally, because racism is very overt here and it's very ingrained within the system. So it makes it, I'm not fearful, but I'm watchful how I maneuver and how I move, because I don't know, those that are ingrained in the system that are camouflaged. And so that I know I have to be mindful, but I still am going to be a part of the change, because I'm not going to be silent because I'm concerned. But I'm going to be mindful of how I do that and how I implement that and how we bring unity, because unity has to come forth in order for us to continue to grow and thrive as a human race. And so that was the thing that I was asking, as part of the solution we're talking about. We're addressing the things that have been challenges and what our pain points are, but and in addition to addressing that, learning how we can collectively within our sphere of influence, but individually, but also collectively together, how we can continue this movement, which is to continue to have these conversations and to continue what we're doing. And so,
Yeah.
I know you came in on the tail end, and I know we've been on since 11 and it's going on 1. I know I have a meeting at 2. So if anybody else has anything they want to say or any closing remarks, then we can continue.
I just want to get Paulina and Yolanda's information so that we can stay connected. Because I love this. I think this is great. We do these, but let's step out of this and make more impact, outside of the Zoom call. How can we support each other? I don't know what kind of businesses you guys have. If you have your own businesses or you work or you're looking for support, Michelle knows that I am all about supporting women in general. So if there's any way that I can support either of you, and I know Leslie knows me too. So Leslie, you know that you always have my support as well. I didn't forget about you, Leslie. But yes, please do. Okay, Yolanda, you just dropped your email. Awesome. Cool. I think I have it too with the chain, but I'd love to hear what you guys do exactly. And
well, we can put Jen on the messenger group, right?
Yeah, I think
I am in the group.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you guys, Yolanda and Paulina, what do you guys do?
I don't really do anything. It's so sad to say. I'm looking for things to do. I'm retired, and
Okay.
having I'm in Texas, so being on total lockdown, I walk and I talk, and I've been joining groups. And I shared earlier that I'm recently aware of all the things going on with the Black Lives Matter movement and just different things. So I'm so interested in things like this, and I've been looking at other volunteer opportunities. So I don't know. That's kind of where I am.
Cool.
Just
okay.
doing nothing.
You are gorgeous and young to be retired.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to know your secret. What'd you do?
It's probably like the lighting in here. I'm not as young as you'll probably think.
No.
But thank you.
Just say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.
And I'm a co-founder of a nonprofit, Active Veterans with Answers. We have 2 subcomponents under that, Vet Girls Rise and Dimes for Homeless Vets. But I also volunteer at the Veterans Affairs and help veterans submit claims for benefits.
Cool.
So
Yeah.
I'm retired.
Ish, retired-ish.
And you already know what I do, so, but this is just an expansion of what I'm already doing.
Yeah.
And I believe they shared their emails with you.
Yes.
Yeah. I do
I
have
have
to
that
go,
next.
y'all, but I wanted to say I've so enjoyed this. I look forward to hopefully continuing the conversation again, and I'll be praying for the nation and this group as well. So thank you for including me.
We're gonna
Yeah,
meet
so
again.
nice to meet you.
Okay, yeah, I'll
Nice
look
to
forward
meet
to
you
the
as well.
emails, I guess. Okay,
We're gonna meet
thanks.
up again.
Yeah.
We're gonna meet up again. We can go ahead if you guys have your calendars. Try to map out, when we're gonna next meet.
Okay, just send me an email and I'll jump on. Thank
Okay.
y'all.
Thanks, Yolanda. It was a
Okay,
pleasure meeting you.
bye.
Bye.
Okay, ladies.
Michelle, if you wanna start, give us some dates. I'm happy to look at my calendar and see what we can all.
We should probably, for recording purposes, maybe,
Yeah, stop recording.
yeah.